In the late 1960s, my great-uncle John was traveling by train from his village to another to visit family. He had to change trains at one point and was dropped off at what amounted to a platform in a hut in the middle of nowhere. There was no one at the station, and other than a dirt road that led off into the surrounding woods, there was nothing there. He waited for some time, but no train came. It was winter and getting colder and darker, and just about the time he started worrying about a place to stay and some food to eat, an old woman appeared out of the twilight. She asked if he was waiting for a train, and when he said he was, she said it wouldn't be along until the following day. She asked if he needed a bed for the night and offered him a meal and a room at her house. He was glad to accept her offer and stay out of the cold. He took his suitcase and they set off together down the dark road into the forest. It was more than an hour away, and by the time they arrived at the woman's small 2-story house, John was tired and hungry. They went inside and the woman lit some oil lamps and warmed some borscht for them. John finished his soup and asked where he would be sleeping. She led him up to the stairs to a tiny room with a window that contained a single bed and nothing else. He thanked her, they said goodnight, and she closed the door. Then she locked it, leaving him in the dark. Somewhat creeped out by this, John called to her, but she didn't answer and he heard nothing else. Figuring he would deal with it in the morning and that she had probably done it by mistake, John set his suitcase down and laid on the bed. Before he could fall asleep though, he felt the urge to pee and got out of bed, hoping to find a chamber pot or something he could pee in. He got onto his hands and knees and began to feel under the bed in the darkness, thinking that's where the pot would be if there was one. He found the body. John went right to the window to see if he could exit the room that way. It was nailed shut. He knew that if he remained in the room, he was probably a dead man. But if he broke the window and tried to get out of the way, there was a good chance that the old woman would hear him and come into the room before he could get away. So he did the only thing he could do. He pulled the body from under the bed, heaved it onto the mattress, and covered it with the blanket. Then he got under the bed and waited. Sure enough, about an hour later, he heard footsteps coming slowly up the stairs and then toward the room. The lock clicked and the knob turned slowly. In the gloom, John saw someone moving toward the bed. Then he heard several sickening thuds. The person had bashed the body on the bed with a large crowbar, which then dropped onto the floor right in front of John. There was silence. Then the person went out the room and the door was shut again. John moved from under the bed and took the crowbar and was able to slowly pry the window open. When the window was up, he threw his suitcase out and dove through himself, not caring what was below him, only worried about what was behind. He landed without too much injury and began to run into a field behind the house towards some light in the far distance. It turned out to be a highway with some military and transport trucks on it, and luckily John was able to get a ride to another village where he could catch a train. He didn't bother reporting what had happened to the authorities, since at that time in the USSR, there was a distinct chance he would have been the one who got into trouble. He just thanked God he had escaped and decided that the next time he traveled to visit relatives, he would take another way.